That's amore.
It's like this was a bad position. My shoulders
Ba, ba,
hurting.
bow, ba, ba,
Ow.
bow, ba, ba,
If
bow,
you are
ba,
watching,
bow,
this
bow.
is a live stream that most likely is recorded by the time you're watching it. If you're watching right now, we will take a few minutes before we start as we allow people to show up and manually reshare the stream links. If you're watching the recorded version, that means you're watching in the future. Feel free to jump forward to the point the show starts or just watch us make fools of ourselves as we reshare the links.
Ba, ba, bow, ba, ba,
Welcome to
bow,
Baduy.
ba, ba, bow, ba, ba, bow. That's amore. That's amore.
It really hurts.
What did you do?
When I was posing, it was like wrong angle. Then I didn't want to move, so it's like stressing it. Oh, maybe we should buy that gun
The massage gun? Wait for ano,
because it allows that
3-3.
pinpoint pressure that admittedly, ow,
We's getting old,
yeah, okay,
and the pandemic does not allow for regular
okay,
massages
I
without
see it,
going nuts.
I see it on YouTube. I still don't see it on Facebook.
I'm tagging you in the post now. That's amore.
So we have to do an episode on the Book of Boba Fett.
But we try to talk about happy things on the show.
It still has happy things.
Has happy moments, slivers of
Slivers aren't bad,
only if you're
especially
playing
in
Magic.
especially in groups. Because the bonuses accumulate. Uh, uh,
See, no escape.
okay, I see the Facebook link now. I'm resharing it with our mailing list. Oh, we didn't check for audio levels. Are you checking for audio levels?
Yeah, it's working. Audio is fine. Dynatherms connected. Mega thrusters. Argo. No Voltron Force. If you have stumbled on this video in the future because you were searching for Romeo and Juliet to aid you with writing up for a school project, it's probably not the video for you. I would move on. We are not. This is not material that you can cite.
Yeah, we won't
We have
be
no research.
academic,
We just have
but
opinions
we might share things that you might want to research about.
because Toby likes weird facts. He will try to find bizarre aspects of this.
Mm, but it's still not as weird as Nomeo.
I embrace bringing up Romeo and Juliet because it might as well be me instead of you. Romeo and Juliet. And then the light's kind of flickery. I think the USB cable is like wonky. Mitch, Mitch, of course, is sharing the news that yes, the Chloe couple are getting married.
I don't know the flight.
Crash landing on you,
Oh, okay,
Chloe.
okay, okay, okay. Sorry.
I've been saying Chloe so often in our chats with Mitch, and you have not picked
Yeah,
up on
no,
it.
no. You know me. It's like Ram. Hey, Jed. So Mister will get married. He has that news when he's like,
So now we're gonna have to watch what Memories of Alhambra.
yeah.
Actually, I really want to. I want to watch Secret Garden though. That's the one that their mom was saying with the stunt woman.
Hmm.
That seems intriguing. But
Well,
Coffee Prince first.
give you the heart, the Korean heart.
And so since we've started watching like K dramas on the regular Netflix now, like our Netflix on Chromecast is like flashing K drama upon K drama. Now it's
Which
like,
is
oh
not
my
necessarily
Venus.
bad.
Oh, but it's the girl I don't like.
Yeah, that's
It's
it.
Cha Cha
That
Girl.
is the girl you don't like. Um,
Of course, Mitch keeps saying Goblin is better. I'm sure. That's why I will watch Coffee Prince first. You're the one who said it. Like maybe we'll be disappointed after everything after we watch Goblin. So we're watching Coffee Prince first.
Okay, I think we can start in 1 2 minutes.
Oh, we should check what K dramas are Romeo and Juliet inspired. I'm sure
Yeah,
meron. I'm sure
that's a good one.
meron. Okay, while Toby's looking that up, I'm going to roll the credits. So let me hide the caption and we'll be right back.
Oh yeah! Really great!
This is Toby.
And this is Rocky.
And if it's your first time here, welcome to Baduy, our little space on the internet where we talk about anything we want.
This is completely unscripted and not entirely accurate, but at least it's honest. Join us as we don't laugh. We talk about everything and anything random live.
And if it's not your first time here, thank you so much for joining us again. We chose the episodes for this week because we're celebrating Valentine's Day in advance.
It's a Monday.
Yeah.
It's a Monday. It's
And
a Monday Valentine. That's
and-
the worst
And
Valentine's
it's
Day.
weird if our Valentine's episodes is like after
The day
Valentine's.
after. Yeah. Which I don't know. Some people argue is Single Awareness Day or something.
So yeah,
Whatever.
so we talked about Fog of Love, the board game that's all about romance last Tuesday,
Yes, you can still watch that on the channel, whether Facebook or YouTube.
and how it is interesting because it's either you learn to play the game well or you break all the rules of the game and you learn to love.
He's a metaphor.
But today we're talking about Romeo and Juliet. Everything from its roots, the things that inspired it, to the things it has inspired, the transformations and alterations it has gone through, from classical to contemporary to gnomes.
Not that I'm a particularly big fan of Romeo and Juliet. It's just ridiculous that
But-
it is a thing that exists.
For today's episode, we are wearing our shirts, which were a gift from John so many years ago, but
So many-
they still
It's like within the first year of us knowing each
and
other.
they still fit nicely. Sadly, we don't know if there's ever going to be more of this, but it's our LaSalle Ateneo shirts. Well, officially, it's not.
Because I mean, you could argue that someone
No,
with
the-
an Atenean background and someone with a LaSallian background should not end up together
The tag's
because
covering the label.
of the school rivalry. Well, I'm sorry, I'm short. Can't do anything about
They
that.
can't flip
I have
it to
to
the-
like,
they
I have to
can't
like
flip it to the
No,
other
it doesn't
side.
come with that option. It
It's
can't.
not for free.
It
Not
can't.
for
It
free.
can't go to like where the tall person is. Is there an option? No, there is no option to move the caption to the taller side of the video.
So let's talk about Romeo and Juliet. Most, if not everyone, knows that when you say Romeo and Juliet, you're talking about William Shakespeare.
I hope so, and not Romeo and Juliet. And well, before we kind of dive into the deeper stuff, do you remember when you first encountered Romeo and Juliet?
Theater.
Formerly theater,
I'm not
away?
sure if it was a school-related theater thing first or
Okay.
if it was my uncle.
Oh, okay, that's
But
valid.
my uncle, syempre, Ricky Abad, is always
Name drop.
doing this or that production. So
Oh, hello, Michael, all the way in Jacksonville. Wow,
Hey,
thanks for
Michael.
tuning in.
nice to have you join us. We hope you'll enjoy the show, and if we do lapse to Filipino every now and then, we will try to keep it English. But yeah, I remember I would like to think it was school first, but it may be family first in my
Mm.
sense.
But didn't you take it up in school?
As in study the book?
Yeah,
No.
really?
We were Edgar Allan Poeing. And we were
What?
Canterbury Tales.
What?
And
What's
there was
this-
one more.
What is this dark stuff?
And Greek.
Greek tragedy.
Yes. Those were the stuff I went
Wow.
through.
Okay. Okay. No, because
So when I saw Romeo and Juliet on stage, I was like, "What? What? Wait, they die?" I was freaked
whoa,
out.
get your shark. Spoiler alert. Like that book, they die. They both die at the end.
Spoiler shark.
Okay. No, because
You.
I'm a little surprised only because our in high
You
school
dropped something. Go in.
you go through 4 Shakespearean classics, one per year.
In
So-
Ateneo.
Yes. In freshman year, it was officially everyone does Merchant of Venice, but then our class did Julius Caesar
Mm.
because we always do Julius Caesar.
Mhm.
And then second year was Romeo and Juliet,
Mhm.
which is a funny contrast together with Ibong Adarna in the same year. Third year
Okay.
was Hamlet, or no, third year was Macbeth. Sorry, fourth year was Hamlet.
Mm.
So you kind of go through this particular flow of tales, and that also includes those classic moments of um watching those really old Romeo and Juliet adaptations as a film activity in class. I think we watched the looking very quickly. Um, um, darn, I don't know which version it was, but it was pretty old. Okay, and then but yeah, and then having schoolwork related to it. So
Mhm.
that was my first encounter. Um, but yeah, so Toby, what is Romeo and Juliet?
Since I am terrible when it comes to details, I'm sticking to Wikipedia. Romeo and Juliet is a tragedy written by William Shakespeare early in his career of two young Italian star-crossed lovers whose deaths untimely reconcile their feuding families. See, even Wikipedia spoils it on the onset.
Okay, I think it's old enough because it is already a trope in itself. It's old enough to not be like really a spoiler.
To continue reading, it was among Shakespeare's most popular plays during his lifetime, and along with Hamlet, is one of his most frequently performed plays. Today, the title characters are regarded as
Archetypal.
archetypal young lovers.
Yeah, and it's funny because we celebrate this as like when people think about like what play is most about romance. They talk about Romeo and
But
Juliet.
it's not.
It's tragic.
It's about tragedy. It's about the tragic romance. It's not about
Yes.
love. It's about
Well,
foolish love.
It's still there. It's young love. Like, you don't even have to tailor it as foolish. It's
Mhm.
just young, which could be inherently foolish, but it's just young.
Sorry, Taylor got me thinking Swift. Anyway, uh, now the funny thing about Romeo and Juliet is that many know Romeo and Juliet on a certain stage in its evolution
Yes.
because of the many changes that it has gone throughout the years. When you ask people about Romeo and Juliet, people will say, "Oh, the balcony scene," or they'll say, "Oh, the best friend Mercutio." Is that how
That
you say the
Prince
name?
of Cats.
Yeah.
Yes.
But those elements are not necessarily part of the original in terms of how the original I think it was Quattro. Yeah. The original Quattro was written. Wherein the um, Mercutio was later added on as a character in terms of making it work. And I guess the biggest shock is that Romeo and Juliet wasn't first written by William Shakespeare alone.
Well, okay. On that note, I mean, like many movie creators and stuff, there are people who make who make interesting movies that are based on other material.
Yes.
So you don't necessarily say that he did not write it alone because he still put these elements together and made his story, but it was clearly adapted from other. I mean, like it's like saying like Julius Caesar. Do we credit Julius Caesar for dying in this manner? That someone made a play about it?
So in many ways, Romeo and Juliet is one of the most popular fan fictions out there, other
Toby,
than
this is
Twilight.
this is what Toby wanted. He was saying it earlier, right before the show,
Right?
as we were
But
recapping.
it's true, because
Fine.
because Romeo and Juliet does belong to a tradition of tragic romances stretching back to antiquity. The plot is based on an Italian tale translated into verse as the tragic history of Romeo's and Juliet by Arthur Brooke in 1562. 1562 is practically 35 years before Shakespeare's version.
Yes. But hey, it's the one that becomes popular that matters. So
Mhm.
Asylum, keep going. You have a chance.
Oh my god.
Maybe one of your movies will become more popular than the material it is clearly
maybe
inspired
one
by.
of these days,
Shark
Sharktopus
Octopus
versus Mega Shark
yeah.
will be like a Greek tragedy in terms of intensity, and like everyone's like, "Oh, it's such a classic." The beast attacking the people. Um, so Romeo and Juliet has been um, one of those stories that really resonates with people in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Some would resonate in the feeling of being in a romance that others frown upon. Others resonate in the feeling that you are warring families, and look, in the middle of this war are two souls that find each other.
Sometimes you just want to be the nun, the maid.
And then,
No,
thanks
no,
to
no.
certain movies, we also now resonate with this in the sense of, wearing an angel outfit and just celebrating being special.
Ooh, we're gonna have to spend a whole bit talking about that movie.
Thank you,
Okay.
Baz Luhrmann.
Okay, so key points on Romeo and Juliet is
Mhm.
just that um the opening alone is like really one of the better little like monologue soliloquy things that you ever encounter. Two households, both alike in dignity, in fair Verona, where we lay our scene. From ancient grudge break to new mutiny, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean. From forth the fatal loins of these two foes, a pair of star-crossed lovers take their life, whose misadventured piteous overthrows do with their death bury their parents' strife. The fearful passage of their death-marked love and the continuance of their parents' rage, which but their children's end not could remove, is now the 2 hours traffic of our stage,
Mhm.
the which, if you with patient ears attend, what here shall miss our toil shall strive to mend. In other words, it's a spoiler. The guy recaps, no, the guy gives a preamble that this is a tragedy, there's gonna be death,
Mhm.
and you're gonna be here for 2 hours.
Yes.
I love this. I mean, as much as I have memorized that I read that. I
Mhm.
mean, I've memorized things like Macbeth Act One Scene One because
Mhm.
the witches are awesome.
Mhm.
But this is still one of my favorites. One of my favorite opening because it was just so weird because it was a very um he's not in character,
Mhm.
so to speak. He is in the theater with you, setting preamble, and you don't see that in many Shakespeare stuff.
Mhm.
It's like it's so no. I mean, I'm sure there are, but it's super notable here.
It's almost like there's a narrator.
Yeah, yeah, but he's not like, but he comes up back and he comes back
Yeah.
at the end, and he says like, "Oops, say that's what happened." Okay.
So, among the sources that we just have on the site, which is from Wikipedia, so there are earlier tragic love stories that may or may not have been influential in the development of what we know to be Romeo and Juliet.
Mm-hmm.
So, as mentioned from Ovid's Metamorphoses, Morphoses,
Metamorphoses.
Thesis. Yeah,
Seas.
yeah. There's Pyramus and Thisbe, which parallels the Shakespearean story of lovers whose parents despise each
Oh,
other.
read the next one.
There's Ephesia
Go on.
of Xenophon.
Yes,
Why are you staring at me like this?
I love it when you
Because I'm
have to read
struggling.
difficult things.
Yes, I'm struggling. A third century piece that contains several similarities to the play, including the separation of lovers, a potion that induces a death-like sleep. And then, of course, from Dante's Divine Comedy come the names Montague and Capulet, which were both present in the sixth canto of Purgatorio.
Purgatorio is not the funnest book in
Mhm.
the
See,
comedy.
so again, this all supports it's fan fiction.
Ultimately, Shakespeare was not this brilliant genius who wrote in
He
isolation.
was a
He knew what was the pulse of the crowd and
Mhm.
he was able to create stories that worked. He is essentially a guy who makes movies at the film fest,
Mhm.
at the Metro Manila Film Fest or something. So, anyway. Um
So the earliest version of the Romeo and Juliet tale, similar to the play, is the story of Mariotto and Ganosa by Masuccio Salernitano in his 33rd novel of Il Novellino, published in 1476. The story set in Siena insists the events took place in his own lifetime. There has a secret marriage, a colluding friar, a prominent citizen dies, an exile, a forced marriage, a potion plot, a crucial message that gets the ghosts astray. But here, Mariotto is caught and beheaded, and Ganosa dies of grief. Um, around later on, Luigi da Porto adapts the story in his Historia Novellamente. I'm not going to say the rest of these words, but it's a newly discovered history of two noble lovers written in 1524. Um, Here, again, drawing from the Metamorphoses story as well as Decameron and other books, um, again, writes the story as autobiographical. This time, it's a soldier present at a ball at a residence following a peace ceremony and all
POV
this
is
and that.
important.
So there's all these little variations of the main story. But here we have a half paralyzed from a battle wound soldier who later on dedicates the novel to the woman and this and that. Um, and much later, we have the other characters with the more familiar names coming in. The Portia includes Tybalt, Count Paris, and the nurse. Um,
Everybody loves the nurse.
a second novel later on by Matteo Bandelio, I think, um, lengthens and weighs down the plot, leaving the story unchanged. Um, but yeah, so you have all these versions that help form what we eventually becomes what we know. But even what we know is different from what Shakespeare wrote, because um, while Shakespeare wrote certain things, there are certain things like the balcony scene, which were later adjustments. Um,
Which
if
is like any modern theater production. Like, you know, that there are many plays that evolve over time, or like as or even when you go, there's the off Broadway run
mm,
versus the Broadway run, and there are adjustments that happen in between. Or there's the when a play is first presented or is first workshopped,
mhm.
that's often not at all like what the final production is going to be.
So, like in the original Shakespeare play, there was no balcony. Juliet appears at the window. The word balcone is not even known to have existed until 2 years after Shakespeare's death.
Ooh,
The balcony was then later added in a production that borrowed from the story and placed the two lovers in a balcony reciting a speech. And then it got popular, so they always kept the balcony from that point on.
it's yeah, it's just these little interpretations that linger over time, and that's what, and hence even things like just that's why the Tony Award celebrates things like revivals of
Mm.
plays, which is different from like just celebrating plays that came out, because they also reinterpret some of the work sometimes and bring in new elements. So that's it's just fun to see that it is a tradition that has been going on literally for centuries, and it continues on. Okay, but let's talk about Romeo and Juliet itself as
Mhm.
a story.
Characters.
What stands out for you? Because admittedly, I feel like the older you get, the more you're annoyed by Romeo and Juliet. Because they're these stupid kids.
So me, I love the poison. I love that twist.
Of course, you love the death
Coming
angles,
from coming from Edgar Allan Poe and
the
Greek
Canterbury
and the
Tales.
Greek myths to have a faked her death, believed it, now kills himself. I was like, this is so awesome, and I remember a lot were more horrified, crying. Um, some friends were so stupid, and me, I was just, this is so cool. Because it had nice beats in the sense of, you know um it wasn't even done to surprise the audience. They tell you this poison but it will fake my death and blah blah blah,
Yeah.
and then the characters are telling you what they're going through and experience, and it gives you that bonus of, since you are the audience, you are hyper aware, you are omniscient of the greater picture,
Mm-mm.
that that's not really poison. Oh no, he thinks it's poison. And then, oh no.
It's the classic, kind of wink with
Mm-mm.
the audience that you there is a contract, a social contract in the production where you have information the characters do not,
Mm-hmm.
and thus it heightens your reaction because of the fact that um of course you're seeing a larger picture than the characters don't, and I mean, and it's an age old device
And
that we
it's
see
a
now in movies
large
and stuff.
part of what makes thrillers and horror movies work.
Wow, we went back here. Okay.
Tragedy. Romeo and Juliet is a tragedy. It's less of a romance and it's
Oh, we
more a
should say,
tragedy.
should we say the tragedy?
Okay. You, what was the part that really connected with?
um I really do love the nurse though.
Why?
I don't know. She was like very interesting comic relief. I think what I like though throughout is that I mean, Shakespeare has some really clever wordplay in
Mm.
this, and there are certain things that when I was reading it I didn't appreciate as much as when I saw it in a movie.
Mm-hmm.
So when we saw Romeo plus Juliet, and you know that officially that's the title, it's Romeo plus Juliet. Um, the scene about the kiss, their first meeting, and then I stole something. I stole the kiss, then I have to steal it back.
Mm.
That whole exchange, ah, brilliant. May we be so brilliant in our writing. Same thing at the end about when they discover the poison, and then she tries the drink, and then curse that there's not enough for me and all that. I don't know. I just I the wordplay really
And
got me.
Shakespeare's wordplay, in as
Oh,
much as
he has
yeah,
many layers of
in as
punning.
much as he writes what's popular, he writes it really well. But it's weird. It's weird to use the word sophistication in the sense that he won't just give a story. He'll make up new words to define what he wants. He'll come up with those wordplay, multi-layered statements because it's what makes it more interesting.
And it ties back to even just iambic pentameter, which is one of the strangest structures. Like when you're learning, I mean, it's easy to understand rhyming. It's easy to understand haikus, maybe even limericks. But then iambic pentameter, when you're first like, so it's 10 count. It's a 10 beat count. What's the point, right? What's the
Hmm.
point of the 10 beat count? But because of the 10 beat, it gives this rhythm to the whole thing. And then certain words end up being pronounced in a different way to meet the 10 count. Hence,
Mm-mm.
there's something like vanished, right?
Mm-mm.
Then when you normally used to say vanished. And there's something about it that it ends up giving like almost different meaning to some words. So I
And this
love
is
I
why
love
also
this.
there are many who celebrate the sophistication of rap and the like because it does um not necessarily borrow, but it was also born
It's of
from
the
the
same
same,
school, I
yeah, it's
guess.
from
Yeah.
the same framework of words are not just words. It's not just the meaning of the words, it's the sound, it's the way you pace the word. Like there was recently this video clip I saw of, oh my god, what's his name, Slim Shady guy,
Eminem.
yeah, who was talking about that age old joke that there's no word that rhymes with orange. But then he was like, no, there are many ways you could rhyme with orange. It's just a question of how you say it.
Mm.
So instead of saying orange, if it's all range, then suddenly range becomes something you could rhyme with. So it becomes our range or orange, or and that opens up doors for other rhymes. And it was an interesting way to view it because you can be someone who's so limited to the word meaning and the word pronunciation. It has to sound this way, and that's it. And you lock yourself out. But
Mm.
then thespians like them, they they don't allow those rules to hold them down. But they don't break it to the point you don't understand. You still get the word and you
Yeah.
realize, oh wait, that's clever.
And that's sort of what Shakespeare plays on. So
Mm,
I found like so I think one of the best bits, which starts at the end. Romeo's dead.
mm,
Juliet wakes up, and then bugger, he's dead. And then uh this whole bit where what's here? A cup closed in my true love's hand. Poison I see hath been his timeless end. O churl drunk all and left no friendly drop because the bottle's empty.
mm,
They help me after. I will kiss thy lips. Kisses. Haply some poison yet doth luck hang on them to make me die with a restorative. But then no poison, not enough. And then depending on the interpretation of the play, I think many people relish this moment. Thy lips are warm,
mm.
which is not even the end of the beat because the end of the iambic, that the remaining five, is with another character who walks in. So it was this I leave you hanging, and
Mhm.
it was see, and then I love this aspect. So admittedly, I think Romeo and Juliet was like the one that really made me fall in love with the structure of it as much as I had a lot of respect already for Julius Caesar,
Mhm.
because it was Julius Caesar first and then Romeo and Juliet. But Romeo and Juliet was really like, man, this guy, he writes, super writes.
Mhm.
So there's that. And then I think other things I like about it already are because of the movies.
Yeah.
Okay,
Characters?
um, Mercutio is always popular.
Mhm.
He's super cool. And then later on in the because of the adaptations he becomes even cooler,
Mhm.
so there's no getting away. So it's like, I mean, I think Mercutio is the fan favorite, but I'm team not nurse. I'm team nurse.
And then we know we have a friend who literally uses the name Tybalt as his
Yes.
as his internet handle. Um, the three houses. Um, so the ruling house Verona, the
Capulet, I
Capulet,
guess.
and Montague.
Italian, so it's not silent.
Um, I always love how you could see this framework present in so many adaptations. So whether or not they directly say they're a Romeo and Juliet story, you can kind of get that's where they're going towards. Um, and then what else? I have to remember what I wanted to talk about. Among the facts online that some sites cite as interesting things to consider, there's a mention of um, so Romeo and Juliet was of course interesting because Juliet, based on certain lines, is 13 years old,
She's a child. She is a child by modern standards.
and Romeo's age is never clearly given.
We always assume he's older, but he's probably not that much older. But yes,
Of course,
Yes.
Aina does mention the Baz Luhrmann Mercutio is the best. We will get into the other adaptations soon enough. Um, it wasn't until 1662 that a woman finally played the role of Juliet. Until then, all stage roles were performed by men. Um, it's believed that Mary Saunderson was the first one in 1662 to play Juliet on stage as a woman.
Interesting.
There was one writer who supposedly tried to give it a happy ending. So 1692 had Irish poet and lyricist Nahum Tate, who became England's poet laureate, um, who, in addition to rewriting King Lear, tried to do a happy ending to the tragedy. So, yes.
It didn't work apparently because we want to see these kids suffer. I mean, ultimately, I feel like all these tragic tales of young love were almost I wouldn't say morality tales, but they were instructive. They were
Mhm.
clearly messages from older people to kids and like don't be like these two, you know. This is not this is not love you celebrate.
Mm.
This is just foolishness and people should all just talk more and all that. Okay. Ooh, we have like 5 people already. All right.
So I guess we can move from the main topic to uh,
Adaptations?
adaptations, and okay, there's the role of fate and chance in the play.
Star-crossed lovers.
So we know that Shakespeare loves um,
He likes bringing up
that there are greater
Fate.
forces involved. Right? It's never just about two people. Like there was a destiny, there was a supernatural element, or there's a
because it's like I feel like it's like the explosions of the day. It's like you
Mhm.
gotta have magic, you gotta have whatever.
it's like the Marvel Cinematic Universe now. You gotta have multiverse. In this case, there has to be those elements that make it beyond just a human
Although
thing.
at the same time, I have to admit that you have things like Julius Caesar, which I appreciate in hindsight, was that there is a complexity of there is the prophecy,
Mhm.
beware the Ides of March,
Mhm.
but then at the same time you have characters saying that the fault is not in your stars but in
Mhm.
ourselves, that we are underlings. So the characters themselves try to defy
Mhm.
fate
And,
and
and, 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 that's,
astrology.
and that's the message in a lot of it.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
regardless of the supernatural or magical influences around, it's your fault, you human, right?
But
It's
at the
your
same
choice.
time,
It's your decision.
you can't
It's your
escape fate.
it's your foolishness. If you didn't, then this wouldn't have happened. If you
Mm-mm.
chose not to, then so and that's I think an element that makes it very intriguing for me. That of course I'm gonna have to look at this in the lens of horror. I'm so sorry, everyone.
Everything for Toby is from the lens of horror.
Um, if if Stephen King is all about you have no choice, the supernatural thing has rolled in, and you're gonna be caught in it. And then Clive Barker is it's your fault because you embrace the supernatural element, and now you're the frigging monster. Shakespeare is blame those things, but deep down we know it's your fault. Deep down we know it's your foolishness. Deep down we know it's your choice.
So stop blaming Mercury retrograde for everything.
And the thing about Romeo and Juliet is that um it's their stupidity. It's their
Let's not say stupidity. We'll just say naivete.
Yeah,
They're innocence because they are young
it's their
and stupid.
eagerness and ignorance that has led to this.
Their hormonal nature.
And by ignorance, I don't necessarily mean they're dumb, but I mean there's information they were
They
not
are
aware of.
inexperienced in the ways of the
And
world.
and there are messages that never arrived. There were communications that were never exchanged.
And there's so many there's just so many close calls about had he waited a bit longer, he would have found out something.
Yes.
Had she waited a bit, then it's all this, and yeah, there's a lot of clever plotting, and it's borderline farcical by later standards.
Now, Wikipedia also highlights that scholars long note the widespread use of light and dark imagery throughout the play. The symbolic duality that exists, which I think was you have your two warring sides. You have of course male, female. You have of course young and old. Then you have love and hate. It was of course this duality that was ever existent in the whole thing.
Yes, and that was it's super hammered in. It really from the very opening is like they keep reminding you of this dichotomy or multiple dichotomies throughout the play.
Mhm.
Jet's has there ever been a version where the poison plan worked out? It only worked out in the sense that they were poisoned.
It worked out in that 19 and 16 the version where they had a happy ending.
In the happy version.
Yes, which never got happen again. So another essential theme in the Shakespearean production is that there is time, and time is rushed, haste. So the Shakespearean Romeo and Juliet lasts a period of 4 to 6 days.
Yeah, it's not even a week. It's
Yeah.
really like, hey, I met you. Oh my god, I love you. Oh my god, I'm gonna die for you.
Yes, and that is something that we can't overlook. That the story changes the moment you change that length of time.
That's true.
If you suddenly make it this is a tragedy that happens in 1 year, and in the first month they meet, on month 8 they now are in love, it's a totally different meaning. The fact that it happened so fast is instrumental to what makes the plot work and why they're ignorant. Sorry, it's a tragedy. It's really a tragedy. Okay, do we now go on to um, the other academic viewpoints of the criticisms?
I
or
don't
do we
know.
go to
We're
the-
not experts at this, and then people who came again, warning, people who came here looking for resources for their term paper in school, go away.
Then let's go now to the adaptations. That way we can also touch on the questions that many friends have
Yes,
posted.
because everybody just wants to talk about Romeo plus Juliet.
So first let's talk about theater productions. So in theater productions, as mentioned earlier, there have been changes. The balcony scene was added, and this and that. There have been linguistic changes as well.
Oh yeah, remember that YouTube video series about that guy who would recite Shakespeare in
The old language.
the older English, and
Mhm.
it's a bit more archaic by modern
What
standards.
fascinates me is when you have language adjustments that still try to hit that rhythm.
Hey, it's like people who translate songs for a living.
Mm-hmm.
That's an art form.
Because it's not just the meaning that's captured, but it's not just the meaning, and it's not just the count. It's the attitude. It's the delivery of the line.
and some of the nuance or the metaphors that are trying to be conveyed.
Mm-mm.
So that's always a delightful challenge.
I will admit that I'm not always one who completely gets to appreciate it properly because I do not handle other languages that easily. But I've always been fascinated when they do these adjustments.
Fred is on my shoulder. Uh-oh. Oh no.
There
There we
There's a
froze.
brief
Sorry, we froze.
So beyond the play
My
productions,
computer is very tired.
actually
Okay.
not beyond the play, but beyond the standard play productions are the more creative play productions. Wherein they turn it into a rock opera or they make it a musical. It's been adapted for ballet. It's been adapted in
For
different.
sure they're
manners.
operas and stuff.
Yes, operas. I remember reading earlier that there was a count. There was a count. Opera. It's gone. There have been at least 24 operas based
Oh,
on
see?
Romeo and Juliet.
Why not? Why not?
The best known is an 1867 version that was considered a critical triumph.
Mm.
Um, yeah, rather than directly adapting the play, there were all these different adjustments. There was even jazz works, Peggy Lee's Fever, Duke Ellington's Such Sweet Thunder, that then touch on star-crossed lovers and Romeo and Juliet themes as well.
I was bothered by, wait, why is Taylor Swift in this paragraph? It has frequently influenced popular music, including works by the
Yes.
Supremes, Bruce Springsteen, Tom Waits, Lou Reed, and Taylor Swift.
And then, of course, when it comes to musical theater, we cannot ignore West Side Story.
Don't you want to be a jet?
So West Side Story is
Yeah,
now
spoiler alert.
so
It's
it's
based
now-
on Romeo and Juliet if you still didn't know that.
so it's is it now officially a fanfic of a fanfic of a fanfic?
Only if we accept your initial conceit that that Romeo and Juliet is a fanfic. It could just be plagiarism. Maybe it's not fanfic.
Or inspiration.
Yeah. But yeah, so West Side Story, and this is relevant because oh my god, we haven't had a chance to watch the movie yet. It's
Mhm.
already been nominated for an Oscar.
Mhm.
So as Best Picture,
So
but yeah, that's a classic one. And then it's again people from two worlds in this case,
two gangs.
gangs, but essentially Latino and white
Yeah, that's right. It's
in
not
that
just
in
gangs.
that period. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a race.
Well, that's
thing.
what made them the gangs.
Yes.
But it was one gang that happened to be Latinos
and their
one gang
favorite
that happened-
aquatic creatures.
and then their
No, jets aren't creatures.
the aquatic creature and how they move.
Okay,
The
shark and
propulsion.
jet. That works. Yeah, I was thinking squids. Sorry. Okay.
You have them, of course, hating each other, territorial disputes, but then you have the two who fall in love, and in the middle of this, you have the side stories as well of why they've gone to this new country and all this. And
Hence, it keeps the tradition of the balcony alive with endless fire escapes depicted in theaters.
Mhm.
Well, we did get to watch one version though. I think
Yeah.
we watched that. I think it was in Singapore. I was happy that we got to see it.
Then beyond that, we have, of course, the movie adaptation. So as mentioned, Baz Luhrmann has the, I think I would dare say, one of the most accepted contemporary versions of
One of the
story.
most striking
Because,
and memorable.
Baz Luhrmann's 1996 Romeo plus Juliet was definitely designed for the MTV generation in mind, wherein it used a lot of spectacle, a lot of
Quick cuts,
yeah.
fancy camera work.
and then it was like modern clothes, over the top moments and scenery, but yet still classical words delivered in.
And
And-
I think that's what blew me away the first time. Because I first okay, so we were watching a modern version of Romeo and Juliet. And then I already got bored watching the other one, the classic one in the AV room in school.
Mhm.
Why I gotta watch this one? But then it opens up just so striking. And then when they start talking, it's still the same. We're still using the dialogue.
And then you have the striking visuals for each of the characters. What was at first an elegant thing of ballrooms and sceneries became this vibrant. I don't know. It's not a rave
It's
party.
not a rave, but it was
It
close.
was like a Halloween party with costumes and
with lots of
all,
money.
and cars, guns, stylish guns,
Stylish guns.
And I think it's the epitome of a contemporary translation compared to other stuff like, let's say, High School Musical that has the geeks and the athletes, and then the two feeling that it's the start of something new.
I
as they
can't believe
sing
you
with
brought
the
this
okay.
up.
It is though, minus the poison, of course. Because the poison was just a finale song where the guy pretends he doesn't want to sing anymore, so he's dead. But then she starts singing, and then he comes back to life. And anyway,
That movie needs poison.
then there's others that sort of explore the themes, but aren't necessarily Romeo and Juliet stories, but sort of get enough to have the feel. Shakespeare in Love, for example, which is more Shakespeare's story, but still given a Romeo and Juliet angle of its own.
They made it parallel his his sort of romance at the time, which was being imbued into the
Mm.
play as he wrote it.
Yeah.
It's a good little conceit. I mean, I know that historically it's super not accurate. Like there are
Yes.
many, like if you put the events together, it's wrong. That's not how the things came to be. But it told a fun story.
So other movie translations and adaptations that you'd like to cite?
Well, I think you wanted to bring up Romeo Must Die.
Romeo Must Die is like, when we get martial arts combat mixing with tragic love story, and I will admit it wasn't so bad. I was a bit struggling to grasp it also had those x-ray shots, right?
What do you
The
mean? I can't remember.
the I punch you here and we have x-ray of the bone. Right? It
Oh,
was that movie
okay,
that had that.
okay. Yeah, yeah. I barely remember Romeo Must Die. It was in that middle period when Jet Li was really trying to make it big in
Mm.
Western cinema. Um,
Okay, I lost the
and it was
list.
directed by a weird person. We should. Let's not use the one at the bottom of the article. Let's look for a nice one. Romeo and Juliet adaptations other than High School Musical. See, there's a whole article, Wikipedia, list of films based on Romeo and Juliet. Predominantly, it's the direct adaptations first, of which they include Romeo plus Juliet as a modernization of the story. So good job for that.
Hmm.
And then other adaptation, we're not gonna recognize most of these things. Wow, and it's like in many different languages. Okay, more recent ones, which I thought was like, it's like I didn't think about it, and then and when it was set up in the list, it's like, oh yeah, Warm Bodies, that weird zombie movie.
Yes, Warm Buddies.
The guy where it's a zombie who starts to have feelings again,
Mm.
and then because he falls in love with a living girl, and he just can't convey it. And like, oh, okay, I did not immediately make that connection in my head that it
Yeah.
was
High School
a.
Musical though was a bigger, closer connection than Warm Bodies. Let's go now to your Romeo and Juliet. You've been holding it
It's
back.
not mine. But it's there and we cannot unsee it, and we did watch it, and it was like, oh my god, Romeo and Juliet, which is literally garden gnomes, and
Mhm.
they weren't even living creatures. They were like ceramic garden gnomes, diba? And then I mean they turn into that form, and it was basically Romeo and Juliet with garden
And then
gnomes.
there's what? In terms of comic books, there's Saga. Saga has
Oh
the
yeah.
main characters coming from two warring sides.
Yes.
But there's a lot of space, science fiction, and magic mixed into the story. A lot of sex too, which is pretty interesting for a comic book. So you might want to check that out. Um,
It just came back. Issue 55, after years of waiting, has come
mhm.
out. So the series is going again. So I'm very excited for that. Sure. I'm trying to find like, oh, what's this? Oh, there is a movie called Private Romeo, which looks kind of queer because it's like set in the military. It was based on a play that was adapted to the movie. That's something
Mm.
to look forward to. Okay. I don't know why. I don't know why I know West Bank Story, but it's a spoof thing about vendors in Israel and Palestine. But yeah, it's just one of those things. There are many adaptations.
And
Oh, it amuses me that Lion King 2, Simba's Pride,
yes,
is technically a Romeo and Juliet adaptation, which again, I didn't think about it until afterwards. It's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. It's because they're from because the warring factions being, Simba's family that now rules Pride Rock, and then the relatives of Scar who we did not know were around and have just come back to Pride Rock. So thank you, direct to video sequels of the Disney market.
um, didn't um, didn't Mitch share
She shared a link in Facebook for a Korean show,
the heirs?
The
So the
Heirs.
heirs was parang Romeo and Juliet according to Mitch, but shouldn't Crash Landing on You count? Because you have North and South Korea, and then the two end up falling in love, although they don't want to show it till much later.
Not enough poison. That's gonna be like my standard for like.
No,
Is it really a Romeo and
no, but
Juliet
the
story?
poison, but the poison was
They
the
need more poison.
the poison was the second to the last episode where it becomes a Lassie moment. You're a bad dog. Go away. Sorry, spoiler shark, spoiler shark. But right, because it's pretty much the same effect.
You're a bad dog.
Wasn't that in Lassie? Wherein
I suppose.
he,
You're the dog
he had
expert.
to save the dog, so the kid was telling the dog that I don't love you, go away, and then the dog believed and went away, but later on realized and went back.
The dog had a realization.
Yes.
Good job, Lassie.
And then what else? What other Romeo and Juliet type of on-screen things can we think of? In terms of books, um, so of course there's a lot of books inspired by the play. There's books such as Beneath the 12-Mile Reef, which is two rival fishing families in Depression era Florida.
I think every time it's like rival somethings
Yeah.
with people falling in love. I was
Uh,
intrigued by what Romy Zero and
Julie
Julie
8.
8, a made-for-TV animated film where are robots from rival companies.
yeah, I want to find Chicken Rice War, a Singaporean film
Oh,
that's based on Romeo
that
and
does
Juliet.
sound intriguing.
See, that
Is it
sounds.
going to be a challenge of steamed versus roasted? I don't know. Okay, sorry,
And
sorry,
then
sorry.
and then we of course have Romeo X Juliet, which is an anime series derived from the play.
Okay,
Your Nomeo appears again.
Romeo and Juliet. We are in a world where there is a movie called Romeo and
Okay,
Juliet.
of course, this one tries to list Titanic as a Romeo and Juliet story. Would you agree?
Technically, they're from different worlds. They were the upper class and the lower class, and I guess the iceberg is the poison.
But they kind of end up together. It's just that someone dies. So
Because they can't do engineering computations in their head.
it's the happy ending Romeo and Juliet version all over again. There's Butterfly Lovers, a Chinese legend made into a cartoon film in 2004
Mm.
that does follow the storyline of Romeo and Juliet. And then when it comes to games,
Ina says Wuthering Heights. I don't know if Wuthering Heights. I mean, like there is some degree of it, but at the same time, I would like to argue that Wuthering Heights is its own thing because ghost love.
well, it concerns two families, which is, I guess, why Aina thought of it.
Yeah, there is that.
Okay. So in terms of games, there is a Romeo plus Juliet role-playing game on iOS. It's a Shakespearean adventure game.
Nothing to do with the Baz Luhrmann thing.
Yes, but it basically has you playing a digital role-playing game. In terms of tabletop role-playing games,
It looked more like an
is-
interactive storybook. No?
Yeah, there is Star-Crossed, which basically has you playing two lovers. It's a two-player game,
Mm.
and the Jenga Tower. And
Oh my god!
and while Dread is you pull from the tower and put pieces back, and whoever drops it dies.
Yeah.
In Star-Crossed, it's you're trying not to give in.
Hmm?
But the moment the tower falls, I love you. I can't deny it anymore. So that's how the game is played. The tower is the growing
I'm
tension.
scared that you have read the system. I'm surprised you have not made us play it.
It's hard to play it online, and if we'll both play it, we'll like be laughing the whole time.
No, I think it's gonna be my face. It's like,
Would you play a rom-com game with me? I think you'll just judge me the whole time.
I don't know if I wouldn't necessarily want to play a game of that nature. I will play it with you, and regardless, I judge you.
Another role-playing game that can be said to be Romeo and Juliet inspired is Breaking the Ice.
Mm.
It's an indie game by Emily Careboss that has two players go on 3 dates and see if they connect. But of course, there are reasons why they don't connect that well.
It needs more star-crossedness.
And then lastly, there is a Romeo and Juliet The Globe, a Shakespearean RPG.
Ooh,
I don't know much about it, but it is one of those that popped up in the listing.
it's on itch. Okay.
Board game wise,
Does it have poison?
there is a Romeo and Juliet board game.
Wow, it's only 2020. It's quite
Yes.
new.
And looking at it, it is directly inspired by the play. You have the main characters, you have the warring houses, you have a meter to track this and that. I just wonder about the gameplay because does this mean you win if they both
Wait,
die?
because look at the mechanics. The mechanics are
Oh, sorry, here.
area movement,
Area
cooperative,
control.
hand management, and storytelling. So you're trying to work on the story together
Yeah.
with area movement.
But that's my point. See, so is this one of those games wherein we win because they both died? Or is it we win because they don't, so you win by not doing the story? That's what makes me intrigued. It was similar to when we were talking.
Poison.
It was similar to when we were talking about Villainous. We're
Hmm.
in. Oh, I'm playing Scar, so I win when I kill the dad. In truth, it's Sorita has
They
those-
practically did.
Yeah, they
It's
just
like
don't
you
say
have
kill.
to you have to rule Pride Rock.
or defeat. Ganyan.
yeah,
or,
yeah.
So, yeah. Are there any other video games that come to mind that touch on Romeo and
I don't
Juliet?
know. I don't know.
themes?
I don't know. I mean, and then you always have these like people from different world type romances in different stories. I was suddenly reminded of things like Macross,
Mm.
right? In
What-
in the original Macross, when
Macross when Miria Sterling and Max.
yes,
So Max and Miria being the Zentradi,
the
sorry,
miniaturized
sorry,
Zentradi.
the Meltradi, because she was the female
Okay,
Zentradi.
okay, that's true. That's
They
true.
get trapped in that area, they shoot and fight, but then in the end they fall in love and they become the couple that, protoculture.
a couple that protocol.
That's right. In that movie, whenever it's two people showing relationships and love, protoculture.
I like their romance more than Rick Hunter and Lin Min Mei.
Yeah, and for those who are wondering why those names sound familiar, you might know it more as Macross, which is an episode we covered in some episodes back. Yeah, we did.
I
discuss
said Macross. I think you want to say Robotech.
Robotech. Yeah,
But then we really shouldn't say it because Harmony Gold is always listening.
yeah. And then anything else? There's a lot of other romances that shouldn't be because they're from different sides or they're from not necessarily the same place, but they don't necessarily become Romeo and Juliet-ish. For example, in the Heights, we have Benny and
Oh,
oh my gosh, the name. But right, that they're not supposed to be together, and then they have this romance, and then she teaches him the language, which is not in the movie version. How could you remove that? Cause yeah, that was the song,
you
right?
gotta get over it. The movie's out. It's still good.
And stuff like that. So there you have those moments of um whenever love doesn't go well, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a Romeo and Juliet trope. Whenever love is from opposing sides, doesn't necessarily mean it's a Romeo and Juliet trope.
Because you can randomly go into things like, Robin Hood, Men in Tights.
For me, it's only really a Romeo and Juliet
They just
trope.
played on some of the tropes in it.
For me, it's a trope if it's a tragedy.
Well, they had a nun.
If it's
They had a nurse. They had a nurse. So you got my vote. And she was funny.
But-
Nurses are essential for comic relief.
I like the I like the Robin Hood Fox one more than the Men in Tights one.
But that did not have full Romeo and Juliet elements.
No.
And the nurse there was a football playing chicken. She was a chicken linebacker, so I don't know.
Yeah, and I love how they steal gems by kissing and their gems in the mouth.
That always comes back.
Be gone,
Toby.
long one. Hiss! Hiss!
I'm so sorry I triggered Toby's Robin Hood fixation.
It's like second place to free.
This happens every time we play Villainous and someone picks Prince John. No, worse. Toby picks Prince John as his character. It's always that be gone long one. I don't know. I can't take him anywhere.
What? It's a good scene. Do, 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 do. See. I'm weeping. I'm weeping. Okay. What else? Okay, let's talk. I think to bring this towards a wrap, let's talk about poison.
Okay, let's
Because
talk about poison.
in Romeo and Juliet, it was so precise that
Hey, brilliant
yeah,
apothecary
it will
guy.
just make you look like you're dead.
Yes, it will
And
slow your breathing and all
and
that.
can you imagine the brilliance of having that half step before you really kill the characters?
Mm.
It's a, oh, we'll we'll have them drink poison, but it's not really poison yet. It will just make them look like they're dead. And then add to that the real poison that the that Romeo ends up getting because he saw Juliet kill herself.
Well, he hears of her death.
Yes, sorry. And then there was that other guy, right? The one that she was supposed to marry. Paris? Oh, am I misremembering?
What?
No, no, there was. Or was that in the later versions where she was supposed to marry the guy, and then there's three of them dead in the tomb later on. Paris here, who comes to mourn Juliet privately, believing Romeo to be a vandal. Paris confronts him, and then
Okay.
Romeo kills Paris. So in the end, there's three dead bodies.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So,
So
wasn't poison though.
no, but the poison thing was for me such a brilliant.
It was
angle.
borderline magic.
Mhm.
I mean, like it's literally a plot device. It's like I have this poison that does this one thing that was like so close. Wow,
For
siren.
2 and 40 hours specifically.
We'll just wait for this siren thing to go by. It's slow.
Ina says he didn't die. Wikipedia says he does.
I think depending on the he
Because
does kill
according
him.
to the Wikipedia entry, the feuding families and the prince meet at the tomb and find all three dead.
Yes.
So, the friar recounts the story of the two star-crossed lovers, and no one cares Paris is dead.
It's very incidental. But what's the ending? I'll get the ending. Right.
Yeah, see, so because she refused to be Paris's joyful bride,
Yeah.
Count Paris.
I just want the endings soliloquy. No, I'm getting all these summaries. Thanks, education, internet that is always determined to like give people answers.
So while you're looking for that,
yes,
in Ovid's Metamorphoses, Pyramus and Thisbe, um, so they arrange to meet by the tomb under the mulberry tree to state each other's feelings. Thisbe arrives first, but upon seeing a lioness with a bloody mouth from a recent kill, she flees, leaving her cloak. Pyramus then arrives and sees the cloak with the lion and the blood. So there's no poison. It's really more, I read the scene wrong.
see, good job, Shakespeare, introducing elements that are borderline magic.
Assuming the beast has killed her, he kills himself with his own sword. And in typical Babylonian way to commit suicide, he falls on his sword, it splashes blood on the white mulberry leaves. The blood stains the white fruits, turning them dark. And then she returns and sees the dead body. And then after a brief period of mourning, stabs herself with the same sword.
Mm.
So what was super tragic and violent, I guess you could say Shakespeare found a way to make it seem more dramatic and romantic.
And the beats just work. The beats super work. It's really like uh, Juliet does the poison thing. Romeo hears of it, goes to her side so that he may die with her.
Mm.
He dies. She wakes up
Mm.
at that precise moment, sees him dead, hands the lion. His lips are warm, tries to poison herself, and then at the end kills herself too. It's like, what the hell, kids? What
And
the hell?
and the tragedy is reliant again on time. Time being such an important thing.
Mm,
Because
mm.
imagine if it was he dies, and then may 1 hour pa. So the audience is like just watching dead bodies, and then we'll have the moon passing, and then... So it had to be precise to have the dramatic moment. Okay, dear, have your line.
Well, then so it's funny. In the end, it ends with the prince. So we
Mhm.
began with this weird narrator character, and then it ends with the prince, right? And then his, which is like one of the more annoying rhymes in this play, I will admit. So a glooming peace this morning with it brings. The sun for sorrow will not show his head. Go hence to have more talk of these sad things. Some shall be pardoned and some punished. Punished, see, for the iambic.
Mhm.
For never was a story of more woe than this of Juliet and her Romeo. It's just kind of annoying, but that's but it sums up things. But see, punished, and then it's funny because you don't when you're just reading it, you probably won't pick up on it.
Mhm.
When you start reciting it aloud, even if you're just reading it aloud to yourself, you will fall into iambic
You
pentameter.
realize that's how it
Then
makes
you
sense.
realize I'm missing a syllable. Then I must say punished.
Mhm.
Isn't that fun? Isn't that fun? I love it. I love it. I had a great appreciation for iambic pentameter. I had to one of the school projects, like we had to write a one act play
Mhm.
in first year, and I know I did a rhyming structure for it, and then
Mhm.
it's like everybody rhymed, and then I had disjoint moments when the rhyme breaks because stuff was happening, and then it's only later on they slip back into it. And I don't know. I got a good score for that one. I was very proud of that. It had the devil in it because of course it did. Okay. Yes, I think that's like the most of what we can say about Romeo and Juliet, unless people have other things
So
to
I
throw
guess
into the
our,
mix.
our closing then is um
Have you ever acted in Romeo and Juliet?
no.
Because of school, I've done scenes, but I can't remember what we did. I think everybody just wanted to do the opening
We did Midsummer Night.
Midsummer Night's Dream.
Yeah,
Hmm.
you could guess
You
what it
were the
was.
donkey, the donkey-headed guy. That was you, no? Did you volunteer? Because you just wanted to have a donkey
And I was
head.
alone, so I had to do both the front and the rear of the donkey. And then we had to throw up one part of the costume, and I was like humanoid. Um, but what I was thinking of as closing was more new movie Romeo and Juliet.
There is a new version of West Side Story.
No. Let's say there's a new Romeo and Juliet movie. Do you want it to be a accurate Romeo and Juliet movie? Meaning, they try to now capture the classic feel,
I don't
but it's
know.
but it's now thanks to technology. Oh, it's really Verona. It's really But then it's full iambic pentameter. It's full classical look. Do you want it to be another attempt at something that Baz Luhrmann achieved, which is let's transform it to something that fits the time. So maybe now it's there's hints of internet and COVID and all this and that, but it's still a Romeo and Juliet story. Or do you think it's time to um, um, redefine Romeo and Juliet?
Well, okay. I don't know if I can think of like um a concept of Romeo and Juliet that I'd want to see. One cannot help but shake the feeling that it's like it's been done. It's so been done.
Mhm.
And then I think we peaked with Baz Luhrmann. I mean,
But
like I don't know. I don't know how. I mean, so I think I would like to be surprised. I would like a transformative work that would surprise me, but I cannot imagine how.
modern songs,
But it's not a musical.
sort of like what they did with Cyrano, right? Wherein they added songs that
Oh,
sounded like they were pop songs.
but we didn't like that Cyrano.
But then there was also
The new Cyrano with
oh, what was the name of that play? That other one that
Peter
had
Dinklage.
that one. No. The other play we saw that had modern songs. But it was inspired by I think it was Taming of the Shrew, or was it Midsummer Night? It basically tried to use modern pop songs to tell the story.
I need more clues. I can't solve this wordle. It's like what theatrical production used modern songs to retell a classic story?
Um, Cinderella recently did that approach wherein it was modern pop songs,
Yes, Amazon
but
Cinderella.
then tried to capture the classic story still.
Just felt weird.
Yeah, but you know what I mean, right? It wasn't set in a modern day. It was
Yeah.
still set in classical. They were still following the same story, but then they tried to inject modern songs into it. So that's an example. Another example would be Moulin Rouge, that um, period piece, period tale, but then it was modern remixes of songs we knew to tell the story. So I guess what I'm trying to
Which is
say
still
is,
Baz Luhrmann.
when it comes to a new Romeo and Juliet, uh, would it be a Romeo and Juliet with Taylor Swift songs, or are you seeing a Romeo and Juliet that's basically if The Expanse had a star-crossed lovers as a story arc?
I feel like one, it's too soon for Taylor Swift. I can't get over Cats. That was painful. That's a toxic production and it has infected everyone involved.
And that tried to do both. It tried to do both modern songs and classical songs at the same time.
And really weird CGI cat people. Um,
Aina Shares Huling El Bimbo did a similar thing wherein it used the songs to tell the story, but it was a completely
but that's
new
still a
story.
jukebox musical.
Yeah.
That's its own
Which is
genre.
different, yeah.
That's its
Similar
own genre.
to
Mamma
Ages.
Mia and Rock of Ages.
Rock of Ages, there you go.
Okay. Um,
And Green Day, right?
yes.
The Green Day one we saw.
Yes. Um, I don't know because I gotta admit because you want something transformative, surprising. What did we get? Romeo and Juliet. It's like I wasn't expecting that. It wasn't great, but it was accurate.
But then um if we look at the more um the only word I can think of right now, and it doesn't seem to be the right word, the more progressive productions that we've seen lately.
Okay.
Such as, oh my gosh, everyone's talking about Jamie.
Okay. Yes.
And what was the other one? The Midsummer Nights one. The
It's not that that's not that new, but okay. Where the World Mine?
Yes, Where the World Mine. Diba? They draw enough from what are familiar touchstones, but they tell wholly new stories.
Where the World Mine is awesome. You should if you've not seen it, you should see
Because
it.
that one, Where the World Mine, was so Midsummer Nights without being a full Midsummer Night's Dream.
Yeah, it went the Shakespeare in Love route where they were doing the production, but then it was still not
yes.
enough.
And I think that's something I would like to see
Fairies
for a,
away.
that's something I'd like to
Go
see
there,
for a Romeo and Juliet
up and
story.
down, up
But
and
that
down.
sort of makes it then a new version of High School Musical. Unless it's not set in high school. It's a Broadway production of Romeo and Juliet.
With the people from High School Musical.
No, but the story is told of the romance of the two leads because they're from warring families.
Okay, there's your pitch, internet. I forgot. I really wanted to spend a moment though in like the revelatory gender confusion moment of Mercutio in Baz Luhrmann.
Okay.
I mean, and that
For-
came out what
Yeah,
2001.
for a movie that came out at that point in time.
I personally I was still like coming to terms also with my own sexuality, and then you have Mercutio, arguably one of the most popular characters in the original play, and then he comes out in that one party in drag,
hmm
but then the rest of the movie he's still a badass.
And even the drag wasn't purely femme.
Yes,
It was still
he still had body hair.
I don't know how to define it. It's not non-binary, but it's non-conforming
Mm.
because he was hella sexy, but
Mm-mm.
he was still hella strong.
Mm-mm.
And it was all muscles, it was glitter, it was glam, but it was also aggressiveness because it wasn't suddenly just flittering
Yes.
softness. It was
It was
still,
power.
yeah, and
And
for-
Young Hearts Run Free
to-
is
to-
like forever
to
classic.
see it at that moment, at that age, was such a I've never seen this before.
Yes.
And maybe for others who see it now, they're like, oh, it's like drag. But you have to realize for that point in time,
There was barely that kind of thing on TV. I mean, you had like borderline indie movies. Like, I mean, Priscilla, Queen of the Desert was still like a weird Australian creation. And then there was Tu Wong Fu by that time, if I'm not mistaken. But
Yeah.
then still, it was just like a weird comedic thing. But this one was like, so you're on board with this fairly like, oh, surprisingly faithful adaptation of Romeo and Juliet as a play in a modern setting, and then Mercutio's in drag, and it's something that really stayed with me. And then like I think after it was a good um I'm not necessarily saying that then it painted Mercutio as gay or anything like that. It
Mhm.
just made you kind of shake out of your um, gender confines for that moment, and then you think about that you can be anything. Because if Mercutio can be a badass and in drag,
Mhm.
but still be like the best duelist,
Mm.
then you can be anything you want. And I think that I walked away from that experience with that, and like I didn't feel like I wanted to go and drag
Mhm.
like that and wear an outfit like that,
Mhm.
but it was just kind of like, oh, that can happen, right? Oh, that can that can give you something else. So
Yes.
there is that. Of course, I 100% he loved Romeo because it can be argued, and I know it depending on depiction of the movie, of course, it colors thing. But then, was it Shakespearean love between men was normal? I mean, it was
In some critical readings
yeah,
of Romeo and Juliet, there is the emphasis on how Mercutio does have lines that seem to infer or refer to Romeo's phallus. Um, um, it's open for interpretation. It's open for
it's
discussion.
that fun little playful wordplay area.
But let's also remember that at that time when the plays were done, it was always done only by men.
Yes, all roles were male.
So um, there's that feeling of, was the writing a joke in relation to that? Because we're all men playing these roles, but we're gonna talk about how you're a man and I'm not, in so on and so forth in terms of the play. So to have that happen in the movie later on almost feels like a rotation of things, in the sense that we're harkening back to that thing where
When
women
subtext becomes
and
context,
where
yeah,
women were not allowed on stage, but now in the time when the movie was released, homosexuality was not allowed to be blatantly visible.
that is still true.
So
Yes.
it was like its version of subverting it compared to how it was before.
We should watch that again. It's been a while
Mhm.
since we watched that last. Okay, I think that that's like that's the big thing I wanted to be able to bring up. Mercutio blew my mind. Super blew my mind. Okay.
So in the modern version of Mercutio, in the Broadway play, wherein two warring families are supposed to produce, and by warring families, they can come from rival studios. Who's Mercutio?
I'm not dignifying this because I feel like you have an answer that you're going to pounce on me with.
Mercutio's a TikTok celebrity.
You don't even know what that means. You're not even on TikTok. You're just saying words, old man.
But it'll connect with the audience. Oh, it's like us. So every scene in Mercutio has the phone and stuff, and that's how he's good with duels. Now back off. You're live right now.
Well, that idea is free internet. Feel free to take it.
We definitely will be looking at watching Romeo plus Juliet again soon. But we hope that you enjoyed this episode where we try to tackle everything we can about it: geeky, fictional, factual, opinions, ideas, and even conceptualizations.
Ooh, we got the how about Shakespeare on the show? That was kind of I wasn't expecting. Yeah, that was fun.
So, again, if you are watching this and you are writing a term paper, do not quote us, but feel free to use us as a jumping point for research.
Citation needed. Okay, and
But thank
that's
you
our
for
show.
watching.
Yep. So for questions or suggestions for future episodes, fill up the Google form at bit.ly Baduy Pride Ideas. You can follow us on Twitter, also we know Shade, RG Suniko.
You could also check out our blog, baduypride.com, for the previous episodes and stuff about us.
Feel free to continue the conversation in the comments below and let us know what are your favorite aspects of Romeo and Juliet. Do you also love the nurse as much as I do? Let's talk. And then be sure to subscribe for notifications, whether on Facebook or YouTube, so you don't miss our next live stream.
It should be Taylor Swift and Jake Gyllenhaal in the lead roles. That would so bring in people to watch it. Anyway, go on. I heard it's a show.
Have a good night.